All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is Left Bank Books welcomes debut author to watch, Jayne Allen, who will discuss her debut novel, Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. Tonight, Allen will be in conversation with best-selling novelist Tia Williams. Left Bank Books is St. Louis's oldest independent bookstore. We would like to thank all of our supporters, the supporters of Jayne and Tia, and everyone for their outpouring of love for our bookstore. We offer in-store shopping, curbside pickup, and delivery to anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. We are very happy to be able to bring our event series virtual. We believe that events are a way to expand your mind and bring in new thoughts to make the world a better place. We hope that you enjoyed this event, and we hope that you support Left Bank Books by purchasing a signed copy for you or for your friends at left-bank.com. Jayne was so kind to send us these beautiful signed book plates. They are stunningly designed, so this is a real perk for buying your book from Left Bank Books. But also, purchasing a copy of the book from Left Bank Books allows us to keep our bookstore and staff operating, and it allows us to keep this event series going. So thank you so much for your support. I am Shane Mullen. I'm the events coordinator for Left Bank Books. I help produce our hundreds of author events each year with a fantastic team here in St. Louis. We will be taking questions from you, the audience, at the end of the event, so you can type your questions as a comment. And you can actually do that at any point in time throughout the event, and we will get to those at the end of the hour. And be sure to follow Left Bank Books on Facebook and YouTube to be notified about all of our fantastic virtual events. Now, about tonight's book. Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. Emily Henry, the New York Times bestselling author of Beach Read, says, an author to watch. The first novel in a captivating 3-book series about modern womanhood in which a young Black woman must rely on courage, laughter, and love, and the support of her 2 longtime friends to overcome an unexpected setback that threatens the most precious thing she's ever wanted. Tabitha Walker is a Black woman with a plan to have it all. At 33 years old, the checklist for her life of her dreams is well underway. Education, check. Good job, check. Down payment for a nice house, check. Dating marriage material, check, check, and check. With a coveted position as a local news reporter, a paper-perfect boyfriend, and even a standing Saturday morning appointment with a reliable hairstylist, everything seems to be falling into place. Then Tabby receives an unexpected diagnosis that brings her picture-perfect life crashing down, jeopardizing the keystone she took for granted, having children. With her dreams at risk of falling through the cracks of her checklist, suddenly she is faced with an impossible choice between her career, her dream home, and a family of her own. With the help of her best friends, the irreverent and headstrong Layla and Alexis, the mom jeans wearing former sexy Lexi, and the generational wisdom of her grandmother and the nonagenarian firebrand Miss Gretchen, Tabby explores the reaches of modern medicine and tests the limits of her relationships, hoping to salvage the future she always dreamed of. But the fight is all-consuming, demanding a steep price that forces an honest reckoning for nearly everyone in her life. As Tabby soon learns, her grandmother's age-old adage might still be true. Black girls must die exhausted. Tia Williams, who you might know from a couple of things, the award-winning author of The Perfect Find and 7 Days in June, and also our conversation partner for the evening, says, an impossible-to-put-down novel chronicling Tabitha Walker's extremely relatable journey through relationships with men, friends, family, and most importantly, herself. With finely drawn characterizations and touching life lessons, Jayne Allen paints Tabitha's adulting journey with heartbreaking, heartwarming strokes that stayed with me long after I'd finished reading. On a personal note, as a Black woman who struggles with infertility, it's so refreshing that Allen sheds a light on this rarely told story. Sign me up for the trilogy. And on that note, I will say that the second book in the trilogy is coming out in February of next year and is available for pre-order. I will be sharing that link as well in the comments. And now, about tonight's speakers. Jayne Allen is the pen name of Wanique Seeley. Actually, I forgot how to pronounce that, so I forgot to ask. So I will do that as soon as we go live. A graduate of Duke University and Harvard Law School. An avid traveler, she speaks 3 languages and has visited 5 continents. Drawing from her unique experiences as an attorney and entrepreneur, she crafts transcultural stories that touch upon contemporary women's issues, such as workplace and career dynamics, race, fertility, modern relationships, and mental health awareness. Her writing echoes her desire to bring both multiculturalism and multidimensionality to a rich and colorful cast of characters inspired by the magic uncovered in everyday life. Black Girls Must Die Exhausted is her first novel, which she calls The Epitaph of My 30s. A proud native of Detroit, she currently lives in Los Angeles. And tonight she will be in conversation with Tia Williams. Tia had a 15-year career as a beauty editor for magazines including Elle, Glamour, and Essence. In 2004, she pioneered the beauty blog industry with Shake Your Beauty. She wrote the best-selling novel, The Accidental Diva, and penned 2 YA novels, It Chicks and 16 Candles. Her award-winning novel, The Perfect Find, will be adapted into a Netflix film starring Gabrielle Union. Tia is currently an editorial director at Estee Lauder Companies and lives with her daughter and husband in Brooklyn. And now, without further ado, I'm so happy and proud to welcome our fantastic guests for the evening. We have Jayne Allen and Tia Williams. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for having us.
I'm
Thank
so
you
excited.
so much. I am too. I'm such a big fan of Tia, and I just so appreciate you guys hosting us. I wish we could be in St. Louis, but this is very cool to do it virtually. So
yeah, I know. I've never been to St. Louis.
You have to come.
I have. I like it. I have friends, really good friends from there. It's like I think of it as such a great city because of the people I know from there.
Oh, have to visit.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn this conversation over to you. I'm going to be watching in the background and having a fantastic time while you two talk.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jayne.
Tia, I'm so excited to see you.
Same. And as you know, and as anyone who has been within a 5-mile radius of me all summer knows, I love your book.
Thank you. I loved your book, and I was so excited to hear you even speak the name of my book. And I was just like, oh my gosh! But it was so cool. I was so excited for everything that happened with your book, and it just was so deserved. So I just love to see this Black girl magic happening in fiction, and just telling these different stories and complex stories, but still enjoyable. And I'm a huge fan, so I'm gonna try not to fangirl out.
I know. No, this is a very like Black girl magic time in the literary world. I have to say, like it's a little bit of a renaissance. And speaking of Black girl magic and Black women and your book title, I don't know. I think that in a very refreshing and necessary turn, we're finally paying attention to Black women's mental health, right? Like historically speaking, everyone sort of knows that we have been expected to take on the burdens of the world, just absorb it all and move on because we're strong Black women. But we're exhausted. And that's, where you get to these fabulous Gen Z women like Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles sort of putting their mental health first. And as I'm reading Black Girls Must Die Exhausted,
okay. Sorry. Sorry. I think I lost internet. So that might be a little bit spotty. I'm not at home. I'm at a hotel. I'm doing good GMA 3 tomorrow. And so so I'm in a hotel doing this, and the internet, it's been an adventure.
Okay.
I'm using the internet on my phone.
Hotspot.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh no.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Oh no. Do you want to go out and come back in?
I will chat.
Oh, the hotel situation.
Oh,
I've
can
been
you hear
there.
me? I think I'm back. Am I
I can
back?
hear you.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry. This is okay. So hopefully it will stabilize, and if not, I'll try to find another solution.
And we'll just roll with it.
Can you
I've been in the hotel
Okay.
situation with the
Yeah,
Wi-Fi.
I know. I had well, the hotel Wi-Fi gave out on me, and so I had to switch to my cell phone. So hopefully, as a hotspot. So hopefully it will
Okay.
stabilize.
Fingers crossed.
Okay. So thanks everybody
Um,
who's watching for bearing with us on this.
so what I was saying before, I don't know if you cut out when I was talking about how for so long, obviously historically, Black women have taken on shouldered the burdens of the world and have been expected
Yes.
to take it all, because we're strong Black women. But it's really refreshing to see the younger generation, well, younger than me. So like Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka sort of taking time off to deal with their mental health, which has been unheard of before. And as I'm reading, as I was reading Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, I was wishing that Tabitha could follow in their lead and take some
Right.
time off. Can you describe Tabitha's journey in the book?
Sure. So she is doing the kind of do it all, have it all plan in her 30s. And it's working out quite well up to the point where we meet her basically at the very beginning of the story. And we meet her kind of on her worst day, where she finds out she has a fertility issue, a reproductive health issue that only gives her 6 months to make a decision to preserve whatever options if she wants to have biological kids. Otherwise, her body's kind of giving out in that regard. It's not anything she expected, but it really it starts to call into question this whole other side of her life that she was kind of had on hold and took for granted. Like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to do this, which is kind of how it happens with fertility issues. It's one of those things that, it happens, you don't expect it. And so for her, it throws everything into disarray. Everything was set, ready to go, and then all of a sudden, everything comes into question, and her life starts to unravel. And so she's got to go from checklist living to fulfillment living. What does it really mean for her to be fulfilled, and what does she really want? And this is like the first time in her life where she actually starts to ask herself that question. So it becomes a story and a journey of her seeking out living authentically, as opposed to what this checklist looks like. And there's that moment for her where the strong Black woman trope breaks down, and she goes through that where she can't, it's just too much, and she can't be, that present that image anymore. And you see her kind of unravel and break down, and the human side of who she is, and how she puts herself back together, and the friends and family and relationships that support her in that. So that's kind of the overview of, there's a lot of story in there, but that's kind of the overarching journey that she goes on, and sort of a little bit of the pieces of what we've been talking about with, why centering a Black female protagonist is important in story, because there's certain journeys that I think we need to see Black women take, and it's something we can all learn from. So I hope Tabitha, her journey is something that anybody, whether you're Black or not, can learn from, because it's a human story.
Absolutely. And I love your book for that reason. But especially what you just sort of spoke about is the infertility issues that Tabitha struggles with. As a Black woman who has had many infertility issues, you sort of find that we're left out of that conversation a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time I've ever seen it addressed, from a Black woman's perspective in fiction. Why did you want to shed light on this?
Well, it was in part a journey that I took in my 30s, and having to deal with not just the infertility issue, but also figuring out how I was going to preserve my, options. What if I want to become a mother? I haven't had children yet. Even I'm in my 40s. When I was in my late 30s, I realized, I need to decide if I'm going to have options, then I need to make decisions about those options. And that opened a door to like this world of reproductive health and fertility that no one ever talked to me about it. And I was like, why am I just figuring this out at like 38, 39? Like what? I needed to know a lot of things at 29 and 28,
Right.
and nobody's talking about this. And so I wrote kind of the book that I wish somebody would have handed to me when I turned like 30 or before, when I turned 28. It just was like here, and just, things to think about, but not necessarily like thrown at you, but just kind of contextualized and presented in a story where you can like sort of think to yourself, hey, what do I need to ask my employer about fertility coverage and my insurance plan, or hey, like, what do I need to know, or how do you preserve options, and just normalize the topic and the conversation. So I thought if I was going to do fiction and do a story, I just wanted to use fiction to show things that we don't typically get to see or we don't talk about as much. So that was my thinking with that.
I loved it. It was the story was just so evocative. You felt her pain. It was really beautifully conveyed. You also just spoke about the whole sort of checklist versus, what did you call it? Fulfillment.
Yeah.
I love this. As a type A checklist lady myself, it really resonated with me how Tabby had her whole life planned out and it looked perfect on paper, and then she had the rug pulled out from under her, and it's like, what do you do now? What are your thoughts on having it all? Do you feel like we can have it all? Does something have to suffer?
So the definition for me has changed. So like almost the day I turned 40, things became very different in how I thought about things. Like all through my 30s, I definitely was like a type A checklist girl. Like this is, and my friends too. And, watching that and watching it play out in various ways. And what the checklist I realized, and I think my friends started to realize and are starting to realize, is that does not equal what it's, we think it's going to equal. Like you think if you do the checklist life, you're going to feel fulfilled and it's going to make you happy. And oftentimes that's not the case. And sometimes you're even forcing things on the checklist to fit, that are ultimately going to make you more unhappy if you hadn't done that. So, but I think that's just such a 30s thing to do and such a like 30s way to think. And so it was it's a little bit, there's a little bit of like parody in there, a little bit about like life in your 30s. And even the title is like kind of like a little tongue in cheek, because it's just like, here's this, you're doing the most.
Yes.
And, and it's like, just, hold on. So it's like, it's kind of like I could laugh at my 30-year-old self who was like doing the checklist stuff. And I mean, in my 40s, I kind of was like, crumple the checklist. What is really going to make me happy? So, and, with all the perspective that comes along with it. So I wanted to take this character, poor Tabby. I took her through a whole journey, just to kind of explore that and break that down. So
yeah, she went through it.
Right.
I'm glad you're bringing up the title, because that's what I wanted to ask you about next. So in the book, it's a line that Tabby hears from her grandmother.
Right.
Can you go into what it means to her and what it means to you?
Yes. So I think for Tabby, two things. I'll start with me. When I came up with the idea for this book, it was very much a word that I feel like for Black women, it's just a word that if you say it, it's just like you get a reaction, because so many of us are living it and feeling it. And it's, the weight of so many things. It's just the intersectionality. It's like you can't look away from any of the social issues, political, gender, race, all of it, and to varying degrees of how much of a threat it feels like on a day-to-day basis, or how much a tear. I call it a tear in the fabric of your day-to-day existence, how much of
Mm.
a tear it makes. And so it's exhausting to carry that burden, and sometimes you don't even realize it. It just weighs on you. And then all of a sudden, and so for me, when I realized that was the case, I wanted to do something that would be an acknowledgement of that. Because in spite of that, we are so colorful and we are so like funny and loving and bright and connected and all of these things that I just wanted to celebrate, because I'm like, this is not really what life is about. And I think you hear a lot of the stories when you hear stories about blackness, and when a lot of times when black characters are centered, it's like it's very tragic and it's focused on the bad stuff, and like, well, but that's not how we live life. The bad stuff happens, and in spite of that, we create soul food, and music, and
Mhm.
and connection, and it's just this beautiful thing. And I really wanted to celebrate that about Black women and womanhood, and that take on it. So I wanted to take the word exhausted on a journey and take the meaning shift the meaning, which I think is a cultural thing to do also. Like, we shift the
Mhm.
meaning of things. So that's kind of what the book does. With Tabby, when she realizes, and as we meet her, that the word she's been living is exhausted in various ways. It relates to her fertility issue. It relates to how she's feeling, and she doesn't notice. So she goes on a journey to kind of shift the meaning for herself. She becomes a seeker to shift what the word is that she's living. So she doesn't want to be living the word exhausted. She wants to be living a different word. And I think that's the case for all of us too. Like, I think unthinkingly, we are living unconsciously a word. There's a word that can be describing the life we're living. And, that may not be what you want. So what a gift it is to have a wake up call. And that's basically what Tabby gets at an age where you're young enough to do something about it. So that's what the term means for Tabby. And then as her grandmother makes that statement to her, that's her grandmother's observation. Her grandmother happens to be white, and that is what she observed of what she's seen of the lives of Black women based on her generation and her generational experience. So
Mhm.
there's a little bit of like perspectives and examination of race from different generations and different perspectives in the book, even though the book's not so much about race.
Speaking of this generational wisdom, so I am obsessed with elders. Like, if
Yeah,
there's
me too.
ever a gathering, like, you can find me like sitting next to the 80-year-old. Like, I just want to know everything. I want to ask all the questions. I want to get all the stories. I love it. So I was really into Miss Gretchen and the grandmother, who come in and provide totally different personalities. They're both, one is in their 80s, the other one
And
is
in her 90s. Yeah, Miss
in her,
Gretchen's in her 90s, and and Granny Tab's in her 80s.
right.
Yep.
And they both they have totally different personalities and different ways of like approaching things, but they both deliver some serious like truth bombs and are dropping gems. They're amazing. Do you have real life elders in your life that have helped guide you in that way?
I do. So I was really, really close to my grandmother growing up, and my maternal grandmother, she lived very close to us. So I saw her all the time. And as she got towards the end of her life, she wound up in assisted living facilities, and so I would go and I would visit, and that's where I was like, wow, there's like all this magic that's like kind of sequestered away that we don't get to see every day. It was just the personalities, things that people would say, and I just would go in and I would think, what are these people thinking about? And I realized it was kind of an aha moment for me, and I was in my 30s, that what they're not thinking about is, oh, I wish I hadn't have gone out that night or drank that much, or I wish I hadn't have gone to that party, or I wish I hadn't taken that vacation. They're not thinking,
Mhm.
they're thinking, I wish I had done more, or they're, reminiscing about the adventures. And it's just like, it once you start thinking like that and you look at it, it really put my life in perspective, that the things that I was focusing on, just like the checklist and trying to do things the right way and how it's supposed to be, that's not it. Like, that's not it. That's not what matters. What
Right.
matters is trying to be as authentic as possible to who you are, and just not, and trying to minimize regrets, and that was a wake up moment for me, and in that space. And I wanted to kind of give that to Tabby. So I thought it was really important, when you have that perspective of elders, and people who really walked the road of life and lived it, and they can come and say, wait a minute, what are you even talking about? Like, that's not
Yeah.
what life is about. So I wanted to make sure Tabby had that, for her to inform her journey, that she's going to be going on in the book. So that was why I wove them in, and it was really, I had people to draw upon with that,
Mm.
energy and that spunk.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, and I guess in Detroit too. I don't know, maybe people live a little longer, and they still, they do their line dancing and have a
Yeah.
good time. So we keep the older generations close.
That's so amazing. And yeah, like I said, I love that Tabby had that older perspective. It just gave the story so many more layers, and it just became so much more rich. And it was like, so she had these older angels, and then she had angels that were her age. So she had
Yes.
Layla and Lexi,
Yes.
her friends,
Yes.
who are amazing. And I love how you characterize their relationship. It was just so real, like the conversations, I was dead. And I don't want to spill too much tea or like give any spoilers. But the two of them, the friends, like they have some scandal in their personal lives.
Yes, both of them.
You
Everybody
know,
does.
everybody does.
In the book.
Everybody does.
Everybody in the book. Yep.
So there's like secrets are discovered via social media. There's some extramarital, controversy. And for me, it seemed to play into this theme of, things looking flawless on the outside, or things looking perfect. Oh my God, or the perfect couple on Instagram, but in reality, it's a whole other thing, which is an extremely relatable point, like in this social media era, where now more than ever people are into, the glossiest putting forth the glossiest version of
Yeah.
themselves, and maybe not being as authentic as, we have in the past. Were you intentionally playing with this idea through the
I
friends
thought,
and Tabby's drama?
yeah, I mean, we do live in this kind of facades based society right now with social media. And I think we're hiding our vulnerabilities and some of, our truest selves. And when you're living a life where, that as complex as the ones that we're living, the truth needs to, come forward so that you can connect into the support systems that you ultimately need. So, I thought it was going to be really fun to give everybody a secret, and as Tabby unravels, everybody else unravels, and those
Mhm.
secrets start to spill. Even her grandmother had a secret. So it was something that I thought was authentic to how friendships play out. I mean, we definitely don't tell our friends everything, like even when we say, oh, we don't.
Nope.
And and
Nope.
so it's like, well, what's behind, that kind of that last door, so that was like the book. I was trying to do that with this book, was like open the last door for in relationships and for people and conversations, and use fiction for that, because a lot of times we go through so much of life and we know people, but we don't really know what's going on. And so I kind of asked myself, well, what happens when that breaks down? And then, what's on the other side of that? So I went to write into that and see what that looked like, and used fiction for that.
Right. So were you inspired by specific people in your life to create the friends and Tabby's support group? Was it, a Romana Clef?
Well, I think a lot of my friends think that
Is anyone mad at you?
Everyone was mad at me. When they first read my book, they were like, this is like, oh my gosh. One of my friends was like, I can't believe you wrote about my breakup. I was like, I didn't. Like, what are you talking about? And she's like,
Right.
this is just, it's just like, I was like, no, like, this is just how a breakup would be. I was like, I wasn't even thinking about it, and it was,
Right.
it was like alarming, and it was funny because I was like, no, I actually did not write about you. And then I had another
thing. That's a great thing, because even if it's for her, like she related to it that, seriously, that she's like, oh my God, Jayne stole my life.
So mad. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's
so
how
mad.
relatable your writing is.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was like big mad. And then my other friend, she's like, well, I know I call her Layla, but Layla, whatever. She's like, I know that's me. I was like, what? No, it's not. Like, no. But I think it was like it was flattering. And then I was like, well, maybe it'd be better if I told them that yes, it is. And then
Right.
But no, I do take little figments of reality and sew them in to people. Like, I observe quirks, like I'm a real observer. Like, I'm watching on the train. If I'm in a, somewhere else, I'm the one that people talk to on the plane. And even if I have my headphones on, so I just take them off and I'm like, okay, what are we going to talk about today? But people, it just, people are so interesting to me. I love people so much. And so I'm always taking little bits and sewing them into my characters to give them texture and the fabric. So, I hope they feel real, and they start to feel real to me, but I don't think there's any particular person that any
like
one
a
character
composite of people that you know.
Yeah, it's more, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's more accurate.
So I am dying to know why? Okay. So Black Girls Must Die Exhausted was self-published.
Yes.
And I would love to know the journey from being a self-published author to being picked up by a major publisher, and what made you want to write anyway? Was it something you'd always been secretly interested in? How did it come about?
So. I think so. I didn't even know that I was like, I'm going to tell you something that's like crazy. When I was in college, so I started out engineering, and then I thought I was going to go to med school. Then I decided I want to go to law school.
By the way, I went to UVA. We're not supposed to like each other.
I know. Look, I know. I'm like, having gone to Duke, I'm like, it's made me friends, and it's made me like have great fake rivalry conversations. So I'm like, I love that, because I'm like, we always have something to like rib each other about, especially with sports. I'm like, but but I was good. When I decided early on I want to go to law school, I did not change my major from engineering to liberal arts because I believed mistakenly that you had to write a thesis to graduate. And I was so afraid of having to write a long paper or like a long thing that I was like, I'll just keep doing these like equations. I'd just rather do these equations.
I'll keep mathing.
Write 50 page. Are you serious? I was like, oh my God, no. Now that was I don't know who told me that, but that is why I have an engineering degree and not a liberal arts degree. Okay. To this day, I was afraid. So, but it seems like the thing that is for you, maybe you run from, but in every spare moment, like when there's downtime, I was always writing. I was writing something. I was writing a list. I was writing an idea. I was writing songs. I would write songs in law school instead of notes. I mean, it's so if I looked at myself and was paying attention, I would say, oh, girl, maybe you should, like get over this irrational fear and try writing. But it took me a long time to be able to do that. I started writing like nonfiction books, and then this was my first novel. What took me the longest was to even develop the confidence to think, oh, I can do this and I can write a novel, because clearly I have this irrational fear of writing
Right,
long
right.
pieces. So, I mean, that's the craziest thing ever now. But yeah, so that was what made me want to write, was just deciding I think I could do this, and then going about it. So I think that was, what was the second part of the question? Because now I'm all like in my history of
No, it's great. This is what I wanted to know. So then actually was kind of a three-parter. The second
Okay.
part was, how and why did you self-publish?
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm like, where was I going with this? Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'll
I'm
keep
like,
you
once
on
I
track.
started, okay, thank you. 'Cause I will get lost in the story, honey. But so but I decided to self-publish because, so I wrote I had the idea, I wrote the manuscript, had people in my life who read it. They were like, we love it. I loved it. I was loving the process, and I was like, oh, I really love it. So I went to, agents that I thought would get it, and and they didn't. And it wasn't that they were saying that this isn't good writing, because that was what I thought. I was like, maybe they're like, oh, you can't write. It wasn't that. It was like, oh, we don't like your protagonist, or we don't think she's relatable. And I was like, wait, wait, hold on. Like, this is projecting on behalf of the market of readers. Like, you're thinking that readers won't be able to connect to a Black female protagonist
And
in this
also,
story.
since when do protagonists have to be likable? That is not a standard that any white male protagonist is
Thank
held
you.
up to. Carrie Bradshaw was annoying as hell. Like, we don't try to make anyone else but Black women be friendly and
Thank you.
approachable and relatable to all.
Yeah, but I didn't even think she was, like, Tabby's like super. I mean, she's
And
cool.
she's
Like,
great.
yeah, like if you saw her at, yoga, you would talk to, I'm sure. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I was just, but thank you for saying that, because it just didn't sit in my spirit. I was like, this is
No.
not accurate, like, or accurate reflection of the readership, or the market and people that I know. And I was like, for this not to be the last word, I'm going to have to put this out myself, because I have something to prove about readers. I was like, I know that people are ready for this, and that's not true. I just knew it wasn't. I was like, this isn't true, and I'm not going to let it be true. So
Right.
I put it out. I used my little resources. I tried, I finagled it the best I could, like the design. And, I wanted people to feel good about holding the book in their hands, and just, I wanted it to be as lovely of a reflection as it could possibly be, the outside and the inside. So I put it out, and it just wound up garnering an audience. I mean, it was a lot of people. There was a community that started to grow. And I wound up meeting with a lot of book clubs in 2020, since we were all virtual. And in one of the book clubs, I was introduced to my agent, who brought me to the Harper Perennial team, and it was a perfect match. And in Harper Perennial, it is kind of uncommon to see a self-published book go onto a traditional platform, but
Very much so.
they saw the community. So the reviews and the comments and the pictures and all of it, they saw it all, and they said, oh my gosh, there's something here, we can amplify this. But it was really the community and readers that ultimately proved me right, and showed up, and we're like, no, here we are. We do want this. So here we are now with the Harper Perennial edition of Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, and they picked up the trilogy plus standalone book, and I'm so excited.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what the trilogy, when you sat down to write Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, did you have a trilogy in mind?
I kind of did. I wanted to write, well, kind of. So when I went into the process, I really started focusing on character development. I think I overdid it a little bit, because I was like, everybody has a backstory. There's so much story. And it just wound up that when I kind of got like midway through the first book, I was like, there's just so much more. There's Alexis is like, I want to write more about her, and Ms. Gretchen, and and there's just so much more to tell. So I knew that there was more, and it would give me more room. Like, I didn't want to write, like a 600 page novel.
Right.
So the way to do that was, to kind of break it up in a trilogy, and then, you know, her journey, Tabitha's journey, could have a beginning, middle, and end as a series. So it just seemed like there was more story, and I didn't want to stop writing. So that's
So
when
have
I
you
knew.
finished all 3?
I'm mostly done with it. The second book is done. It comes out in February.
Oh, February. That's right.
Yes,
Okay.
and I'm mostly done with the third book. I'm in the process. I'm still writing, but the outline is done and the story's done. I wrote the last words already, so we're like fleshing out and
Oh my
tweaking and
gosh.
everything.
So exciting.
I'm super excited. I went
Yeah, I
from
cannot wait.
not thinking I could do a 50-page thesis to
See, I mean, this is a testament to not putting up boundaries,
yeah.
to push yourself to try new things, because you never would have known.
Never would have known.
So I've been wanting to ask you, we spoke about this before we went live. Jayne Allen is your pen name.
Yes.
So I would love to know why a pen name and why that pen name.
So I came from the music industry. I'll start this way. And there's a lot of like, you know, performance name, you know, there's a lot of that. And I've seen that a lot. So when I decided to write this novel, I was in a very traditional space professionally in my professional career. I mean, not that writing's not, but in my, you know, it was a corporate environment. And I didn't really have a space to express I was wearing my hair different. I was, you know, I was really conforming into this space. And I didn't feel like there was a space for me to express myself or this as an artist or this concept, Black girls must die exhausted. Like, oh, I couldn't put that out, you know? So I used the pen name to create space for myself and to make a space where I could, you know, go into this space and put this book out and not have to compromise, not feel like I had to, you know, bend or twist to fit into this other space. I just created a whole separate space. And so that was what Jayne Allen became for me. And so it's, you know, my name is Janique Seeley, my given name. My middle name is Aline, which also happens to be my grandmother's name. So I just took those components and it's like a nickname for me now. It's like a space. So that space for me is a space I created to be able to express authentically.
So is it like a literary Sasha Fierce? Is this what I'm hearing?
Yes, my literary Sasha Fierce. Yes,
Okay.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I have to ask you, people always want to know these things from authors. So I'm going to ask you some quick questions about your writing process.
Okay.
How long did it take you to write the book?
It took me about 1.5 to 2 years all in. So I had to learn how to write a novel. So a lot of that was just like while I was outlining, I'm an outliner, I'm a plotter. So while I was learning, I was, you know, working out on the concept of my book and outline, story structure. So that took me a while. But once I had the story structure and the outline and the scenes laid out and how I was going to put it together, it didn't take me that long. It took me a few months to write the first draft of the book. So but it was a process, but I don't think it would take me as long for another book because I kind of now have my structure and how I like to do it and my process. I still am an engineer in some ways, I guess.
Yeah, I'm hearing. So when you say you had to learn how to write a book, what did you do?
I
Like,
took
did you take a class? Okay.
Yeah, I took classes. I did UCLA Extension. I took classes. There's a place in LA called the Writing Pad. anything that I could. I took online stuff. I took a class with Lisa Crone. She wrote a book called Story Genius and Wired for Story. I always recommend those books to other writers because I loved working with her and how she thinks about character development and how character ties into story. And I love that. So that was really helpful for me. And so I read books, I took classes, just anything that could help me understand what a novel is. Like what is this? Like, what am I doing? I need to know what this is. So I was like researching the history of the novel. Like what am I doing?
Wow.
Oh yeah. I was like trying to understand, like, how did this come about? so I could understand, how to structure this. Cause I was thinking like, what am I doing for the reader? Like, what is my goal? What's my objective? What am I creating for the reader? And once I can understand it in that way, like I'm more audience focused and oriented. So if I know what I'm trying to create for my audience, then I can understand, how to structure it and what I'm doing. So I think of it as an experience, like a book, or the book that I'm writing. I'm like, okay, the words are going to fall away if things go well. And then what is going to play out in their mental theater, and how are they going to feel? And what's this journey going to be? So once I learned, how a novel can create that was when it clicked for me and made it a lot easier.
And were there any books or movies or TV shows that you were reading or watching while you were writing this book that helped bring it to life for you?
There were books. So I read a lot of contemporary fiction. I read The Perfect Find. I read Crazy Rich Asians. I read Waiting to Exhale. I watched a lot of reality TV.
Ooh, it's so good for character development.
I watched a lot of reality TV because the thing I realized about reality TV, why we love it so much, is because as a writer, you can only write what you understand about life, what you've already processed. But what reality TV allows us to see is what happens beyond that. Like you just set people into scenarios, complex people into scenarios, and then you get to see it play out. And, many writers haven't seen that side of life, or wouldn't know that, or wouldn't know how to create that or craft it. And so I watched a lot of reality TV, just thinking, if we could do that in fiction, if we can, try to make complex characters and play them out in difficult, challenging scenarios, true to life, that's a kind of new format a little bit, or that's something different. So I wanted to bring that energy into contemporary fiction. But I'm so a contemporary, like chick lit, contemporary fiction. I'm that's me all day. So that's what I wanted to like do my little twist on it, which was, like little substance in this like complex character, let life play out, but in fiction. So push the boundaries a little bit type of way.
Oh, hi, Jayne.
Hi.
Hello.
Y'all had me laughing so hard in the background. This was such a fantastic conversation. I love the two of you together.
Oh, thank you. It was fun.
Yes. We got carried away chatting.
I know.
I love it. I love seeing people that like are just fast friends. Like this feels fantastic. We do have a couple of comments and a couple of questions from the audience, so I want to make sure that we have time for that. Let's share the comments first. So Jacqueline says, I am so excited to read this book. And Shaw says, sometimes it can feel exhausting. I cannot wait to read this.
Oh,
and yeah, people are very excited. So let's get
glad.
Let's get to Jacqueline's question. Jacqueline's question is about self-publishing. What was the greatest lesson? What was the greatest lesson you learned while self-publishing?
Believe in yourself. That is the greatest lesson, and do not give up. And even if you give up like on a given day, because there were days where I was like, I give up today. I'm done today, but just start again tomorrow. Give yourself that grace, because it is a journey, but just don't give up, and to know that, to honor your ideas, like your vision, like you have a vision about something for a reason, and just don't give up on it and yourself. That would be what I would be my greatest lesson. I'm now think about things very differently in life because of this experience.
Shaw is asking about so you self-published 2 books, and wondering what they are in terms of so I'm assuming it's the first 2 books in the series, in the trilogy.
Yes.
So the 3rd book you are currently writing, so that one wasn't self-published, correct?
Yes, that's right.
I think that answers. So okay. Shaw just basically said, "Is Black Girl Must Be Magic" a rewrite of And Baby Makes 2?
So Black Girls Must Be Magic, which is the second book in the series following the follow-up to Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. It's a rewritten and re-edited, but also we added scenes and just kind of reconfigured that book a bit. Just with Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, people probably might be wondering like what's the difference between this edition and the other. It's been rewritten and re-edited, so the reading experience is going to be different. But the stories, tried to stay true to the story, not go too far off of deviation. And then with Black Girls Must Be Magic, it's a little different, but it just kind of gave me an opportunity to take it exactly where I wanted to go. And having had all of this experience talking to readers, to just have like, this is exactly what I want it to be. And so I'm super excited about both of these and the title of the second book. And so the third is still TBD. We do not know what it's going to be titled, but I'm like, now we have to come up with this epic title because I really love both of the titles of the book so far.
If you are watching and have suggestions, maybe.
Oh my gosh, yes. People will do that too. I'm like, I'll get some of my DMs in my inbox like, I think
a previous event that I hosted, I'm pretty certain that someone commented the title that the author fell in love with, and it was like,
oh really?
Oh, this is exciting! Yeah. I mean, it really was
so
kind of a from the description, it sounded like a perfect title for the book, and it sounded like a marketing dream. So hopefully, it does that.
Oh my gosh. This is not even related to this, but I saw a book just I think it came out today, and there was a title that I was like, this would be a great title for a book, although it's just really, really like in your face. It's like F around and find out. It's like a saying that people say. There is a book out, I think, today called that, but it was a title that I thought about. I was like, oh, somebody did it.
I want a t-shirt. I need it. Yeah.
I know. I was like, this would be like the most amazing book title. And then somebody put a book out with that title. So
I think you pretty much answered Julie's question. How much did the book change after you were picked up by Harper? So I'll expand on that a little bit and say, how was it going from being self-published to getting to work with an editor? How was that process?
It was such a dream. I really felt like having a editor at that level evolved my writing, evolved the story and in how it was crafted, and the experience of it. So I really think about it less as words and more of experience, because the words are a tool, and I really believe in writing as a collaboration between active collaboration between me and the reader. And so, you're just writing these words on a page, and what happens in the reader's mind and body and space and all of those things is where the magic is. So to have an editor come and to really help me, push me to craft, have a coach and that coaching and that push to push further and to really craft the best and most seamless experience that I could with that with the words and the journey of the book, was a dream come true, because I really just wanted that. After having talked with so many readers, that was where I felt like I really learned to write, where readers, sitting in groups of readers, it was over 60 book clubs, and talking about and hearing from them what they connected with, what they liked, so it gave me the opportunity to really kind of rethink how I went to craft these experiences.
So speaking of book clubs, I think that our chapter of the Well-Read Black Girl they just read your book, Tia. And I think that your book, Jayne, is on their very, very short list of things to read.
Yay! That's so exciting. That is so exciting.
So Shaw is asking, will there be a discussion guide for book clubs for each of the books in the series?
Yes, there is a discussion guide for both book 1 and book 2.
Fantastic.
Yes. It is done and shipped. So
Ooh.
I can say definitively, yes, there will be.
Fantastic. I think this will probably be our last question. So this is for both of you. What are you currently reading? This is going to be the hardest question.
Well, Tia, I just finished an arc of a book called Yinka, Where Is Your Husband?
Oh, I had that.
Yes. So I just read that. So it's really, really interesting how it's crafted. So like one of the things I like Kevin Kwan, how he like kind of sews in other things you would read as part of the experience of the book. So I always think, how can you be innovative about how you craft this experience for people? So like putting in text messages and emails and like really making it mirror life and what it would feel like to be the character reading magazine articles, all that kind of stuff. So that's like incorporates it's like search history that tells part of the story and this different. So it was really cool how that was done. And it's also like a deep cultural exploration. The character Yinka straddles two cultures in London, and she's also Nigerian. She's British Nigerian. And so it's really culturally rich in her, like how she lives out her Nigerian culture, and also being in London and having kind of the, like I would call it mainstream Londoner culture. I don't know. So it was really like a kind of good cultural romp. And I also read In Every Mirror She's Black recently. That's my other recent read, which I thought was it was a great book. And I always stand for 7 Days in June, like Tia's book. I feel like I need to. I'm overdue for rereading it because I think I might have read it more than once.
Oh my gosh.
It was so good. I loved that book. So I will never stop talking about that book.
And vice versa. I sadly am not reading anything because I'm outlining my next manuscript, and I can't read anything when I'm doing that because I'm sure, Jayne, that writers say this all the time. Other writers' voices start to seep into your subconscious, and then you like accidentally start stealing, and your voice gets muddy. So I'm not currently reading anything, but the last great book I read was Malibu Rising, which was a massive hit this summer. And I love all of her books. Really, it just feels like a slice of life of something that absolutely happened. It's almost like you're reading an oral history in Vanity Fair, or like that. It's not fiction at all. So yeah, I love it.
I loved Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yeah. I mean,
like, what is that book, and how is it so amazing? Like,
and how is it fiction? Like, it was so real. All the different voices were so like, give me the movie, inject it in my veins.
I'm not generally a person that reads any book about music. Like like I'll read like articles, and I like short essays on music, but like a novel on music, I don't think I've ever read a novel on music. And I was like, I cannot put this book down. Like, yeah,
it's a testament to the writing, honestly. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank both of you, congratulate both of you, because your careers are just on the like most propulsive upswing. You are going to be, you already are. You are amazing. And like, I'm so happy to have been able to do this event with both of you.
Well, thank you. Yes, thank you so much for hosting us, and this has been fantastic. And thank you for bearing with me through the technological hiccups. We'll call them hiccups, but
it is the world in which we now live.
I swear, I know.
And congratulations, Jayne. I'm so excited for all of your success.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to hear about this new project you're working on too. So we'll have to talk.
Yes, we will. We will.
Okay.
All right. And to the audience watching, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We hope to see you again really soon, and have a great rest of your evening.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us.